Welcome back to our daily Bible study. Once again, I am Matthew Gage, pastor at Faith Baptist Church in Decatur, Texas. We're in Genesis chapter number 35 today. Genesis chapter number 35. And here we're going to see some important things here, kind of building up here to take the focus off of Jacob. We have Jacob back in the land. God's going to reestablish some promises to him and kind of summarize where his family is at this point. And then as we continue on, we're going to, next chapter, we'll see Esau, and then we're going to start focusing on Joseph very soon. So Jacob's kind of going to take a little bit more of a step in the background as the timeline is moving forward at this point. So a few different important things that happen here. God reiterating to Jacob the promises that he made to Abraham and Isaac, and then of course to Jacob. Also a rededication of him and his family to God. And then finally the chapter closes with the death of Isaac. In fact, one thing I was reading said that this chapter really is kind of marked by death, in that we'll have the three different figures die in this as we go through. So anyway, let's just jump right on in Genesis chapter number 35. And now, before we begin, let me say that I think that this does come pretty hard after the previous chapter where we were last time, the rape of Dinah and the terrible slaying scheme, ambush, whatever you want to call it, that was performed by Simeon and Levi. And Jacob, at the end of the chapter, had said, what am I going to do? You've put a target on our family. Where, how can we be safe? People will come after us now when they hear of this crime. Well, they're going to get out of Dodge. And as we get here in verse number 1 of this chapter, God's going to tell them to leave, which I think has to do with the events from the previous chapter. So, chapter 35, verse 1. And God said unto Jacob, Arise, go up to Bethel, and dwell there, and make there an altar unto God that appeared unto thee when thou fleddest from the face of Esau thy brother. Then Jacob said unto his household to put into all that were with him, Put away the strange gods that are among you, and be clean, and change your garments. And let's arise and go up to Bethel, and I will make there an altar unto God, who answered me in the day of my distress, and was with me in the way which I went. And they gave unto Jacob all the strange gods which were in their hand, and all their earrings which were in their ears. And Jacob hid them under the oak which was by Shechem. So, the first thing, God's saying, you're going to go back to Bethel. Bethel's a very important place in the life of Jacob. I think it's the first place he ever, experienced God, had a relationship, had a message from God, was there when he was fleeing his brother Esau, and heading to Padan Aram to where he would, of course, marry his wives and deal with Laban and gather his wealth. Well, that place is still very special to him, and God's saying, we need to go back to Bethel. We need to go back there and reestablish some things. First thing Jacob does is said, well, we need to clean house. We need to clean house. So he tells everyone to clear out all the idols, and there's a bunch of idols, which we already saw, I know, with Rachel when she was leaving, took some idols back with her. So there's still some idolatry in amongst the family. Well, he tries to put an end to that here, takes them, doesn't destroy them, hides them away. Not really sure what the significance of that is. Verse number 5. And they journeyed, and the terror of God was upon the cities that were round about them, and they did not pursue after the sons of Jacob. Once again, say, no one pursued after for revenge or justice upon Jacob's family for the crimes that were committed in the previous chapter. Verse 6. So Jacob came to Luz, which is in the land of Canaan, that is Bethel, he and all the people that were with him. And he built there an altar and called the place El Bethel, because there God appeared unto him when he fled from the face of his brother. Now that name El Bethel, that's interesting because it's basically God, house, God of the house of God. is kind of the way to say it. Some people say, well, it just says it's the God of Bethel. We're saying it's the God of the house of God. So, but basically saying that this is the God that appeared to me. Very personal type deal there. So builds an altar there to God. Verse 8. And while we're here, and like I said, point out, this is the first death we're going to see here in verse 8. While we're there, while we're rededicating, to God, and God's going to reiterate the promises again. While they're there, there's a death. Verse 8. But Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died, and she was buried beneath Bethel under an oak, and the name of it was called Elam Buckuth. Close enough, which means the oak of weeping. So now, it's never recorded where Jacob's mother dies, probably while he was away in the land. But here is her servant, who he must have taken in as a memory of his mother. So she had a place in his family, and here she dies and is buried. So that's the first death that we will see in this chapter. Verse number 9. And God appeared unto Jacob again when he came out of Padan Aram, and blessed him. And God said unto him, Thy name is Jacob, thy name shall not be called any more Jacob, but Israel shall be thy name. And he called his name Israel. So God is reiterating the promises, reiterating what happened when Jacob wrestled with God and had his name changed there. So your name's not going to be supplanter, usurper, trickster anymore. Your name's going to be Prince with God. Verse 11. And God said to him, I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a company of nations shall be of thee, and kings shall come out of thy loins. And the land which I gave Abraham and Isaac, to thee will I give it. I will give it. And to thy seed after thee will I give the land. And God went up from him in the place where he talked with him. So God appears, and like I said, reiterating these promises, these same Abrahamic covenant promises. Leaders, power, greatness, great nation, the land, all those ideas starting with the promises of Abraham, reiterated to Isaac, are now reiterated to Jacob. God is promising that is the line of succession he's going to bless. Abraham through Isaac, through Jacob. Verse 14, and Jacob set up a pillar in the place where he talked with him, even a pillar of stone, and you poured a drink offering thereon, and you poured oil thereon. And Jacob called the name of the place where God spake with him, Bethel. I think he's just reiterating the name that was already there. He's already in Bethel, and now he's saying, yes, this truly is Bethel, because God has met with him twice in this place to speak with him. Verse number 16. And they journeyed from Bethel, and there was but a little way to come to Ephrath. And Rachel traveled, and she had hard labor. Rachel is expecting a second child here. And here she is experiencing some very, very traumatic labor to deliver that child. Verse 17. And it came to pass when she was in hard labor that the midwife said unto her, Fear not, thou shalt have this son also. And it came to pass as her soul was in departing, for she died, spoiler alert, that she called his name Benoni, and his father called him Benjamin. Benoni means the son of my sorrow. Ben being the word son, the son of sorrow. But Jacob calls him the son of my right hand, basically saying that, no, I'm not going to see him as sorrow. He's going to be elevated. He's going to have a place. He's not going to be sorrowful. He's going to be exalted. Verse number 19, and Rachel died and was buried in the way to Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. And Jacob set a pillar upon her grave, I'm getting tongue-tied. That is the pillar of Rachel's grave unto this day. So saying that at this time you could go there and you could still see her grave site and see the memorial that was set up for her. Notice here, this is the first mention of Bethlehem. Bethlehem means house. Bethlehem means bread. So this is going to be the ancestral home where we're going to see David come from there. We're also going to see Christ come from there. So interesting here. We see these places tied to Rachel. Verse number 21. And Israel journeyed, that's Jacob there, Israel, journeyed, and spread his tent beyond the tower of Edar. And it came pass when Israel dwelt in the land that Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and Israel heard it. Now the sons of Jacob were. It just almost skips over this event, which I think is quite tragic. You have Reuben, who's the eldest son, born to Leah. He goes in and has relations, basically, I would say rapes, the concubine, handmaid / wife of Jacob, and that Bilhah, that is the one that was Leah's servant. So this is, I think, some of that old jealousy in the family, these fractures and hatred towards each other coming out to play, that now that Rachel is dead, and I'm sure that Jacob is grieving, and it reopens all these old wounds where Rachel was preferred over Leah, that Reuben takes this action, just terrible action, kind of as revenge perhaps on his father. So just a terrible thing. And in fact, it's kind of glossed over in a lot of the books I was looking at this event. But I think it is important, because when we come to the end of Jacob's life and he's blessing his children, we're going to basically skip over Reuben, who's the firstborn, who should have had the birthright. He doesn't get it. Why not? Probably because of this event and his character. And also Simeon and Levi are going to be skipped over. Why? Well, they were involved in the carnage there after the revenge killings, after the rape of Dinah that we just looked at in the previous chapter. So the fourth one, who is Judah, who also is going to have some issues. We'll get to him in a few chapters. But he is the one that the birthright falls to. He is the one that Christ will come from that lineage, that the rulers will come from that lineage. So the birthright skips the first three. And why? Because they were rascals, scoundrels in their dealings. And this event right here, I think, is where Reuben lost the birthright. In fact, I'll point out here one thing. I don't know the ancient Hebrew or anything. I'm going to rely on some of the things I read, but multiple sources I looked at said that where it talks about that, when Israel, Jacob heard it, there's almost like a blank space there in the Hebrew, like the thought isn't continued. And some different documents have tried to go in and fill that in and say it grieved him or something along those lines, or it troubled him, or, it was a great sin. It kind of also goes into what did Jacob do to his boys after what they did, Dinah and Shechem and all that. He really didn't do much. Here, did he do anything towards Reuben? I don't know. This goes into that family life is just so messed up with Jacob and his family. The soap opera Jerry Springer show that is his family is just full on display right here in this unthinkable act that Reuben does. Okay, so we transitioned there in verse 22. It says, now the sons of Jacob are 12. And now we're going to kind of have this list of the sons. This is the full list. They're all been born now with the birth of Benjamin. Verse 23, the sons of Leah, Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, and Simeon and Levi and Judah and Issachar and Zebulun. Verse 24, and the sons of Rachel, Joseph and Benjamin. 25, and the sons of Bilhah, Rachel's handmaid, Dan and Naphtali. Verse 26, and the sons of Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, Gad and Asher. These are the sons of Jacob, which were born to him in Padan Aram. So there's the list, the 12 sons of Jacob. And if you know your Bible history and you see those names, some of them are going to sound quite familiar. You're going to think those sound like the 12 tribes of Israel. Well, basically, they are the 12 tribes of Israel as we go into this. Those are going to be those divisions. So, verse 27. Here we'll close out this chapter. So we've already seen the first death and the death of Jacob's mother's maid, and then we had the death of Rachel, Jacob's beloved wife. And here, as we close out, we're going to have the death of Jacob's father, Isaac. Verse 27. And Jacob came unto Isaac his father, unto Mamre, unto the city of Arba, which is Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac sojourned. And the days of Isaac were 180 years. That's 180 years if you're keeping score. Verse 29, and Isaac gave up the ghost and died, and was gathered unto his people, being old and full of days, and his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. I think this is the last time these two, if I remember right, I don't remember another instance of them meeting again. They came together when Jacob returned. They had peace, but I think another case, kind of like with Laban, you go your way, I'll go mine, we're going to be fine. And here Esau has been in his own place with his family. Jacob's been another with his family. They really hadn't had any interactions that are recorded. But here these two men come together, looks like lay aside their differences to bury their father and to mourn his loss. So now the focus, like I said, the focus has been Abraham to Isaac, now kind of focusing more on Jacob and his life, which has been the focus quite a bit for a while here. And now we're going to see the focus really begin to shift down even to the next generation. It's been shifting down from Jacob to his children. And we've already seen them doing some things with Dinah and Simeon and Levi, and then also the crime here of Reuben. But much of what we get in further on here, we're going to have a couple more chapters, and we're going to get into the life of Joseph, which is kind of the major emphasis of the final chapters of the book of Genesis. So anyway, we'll wrap that up. Next time we'll get into the life of Esau and his family. But that wraps up chapter 35 for us right here. So I appreciate you watching. I hope it's been a help and a blessing to you.